yesterday when we tried to record and failed, we had there was a bit that I missed out on. I missed like the punchline, so I was like kind of had to sit and hum a few bars. But if I remember correctly, Tom, you had an idea for the show The Activist. I would just like to run that bit back because I was like in the dark. Like I said, since my internet kept dropping, I dropped it right when you were explaining.
Yeah. So here's what I pitched to the network heads. It was reported this week they were going to do it as like a competition game show style thing, but now they've since thought, okay, maybe that's a little callous, and we're going to go and do it documentary style. Well, I disagree. I think they should go back to the competition style, but with this twist. I think that whatever your organization is advocating against, let's say, so the example I used yesterday was, let's say you're fighting toxic masculinity. Okay?
Yeah.
So here's what you'd have to do. You would have to go against the American Gladiators, the sort of pinnacle of toxic masculinity in the 90s, with Larry Zonka hosting especially. And here's what's at stake, though. If you lose in the games, you have to renounce whatever it is you're advocating for and admit that the other side's right. Okay. So, like, if you lose an American Gladiator-style competition, if Saber hits you with that big, ball cannon thing, while you're trying to run the obstacle course or whatever, then I'm sorry, my hands are tied. You have to get up there and say that a woman's place is not in the House nor the Senate, but rather the kitchen. Those are the rules.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
How much are you willing to give up to fight for what you believe in? Is really
are you willing to put your own physical abilities on the line yet?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
also, what they could do is like, it could be also like fear factor, right? So if your team is like those racist anonymous people that we talked about, I guess a couple months ago. Like, your mission is like you go and like Joe Rogan's on the microphone, but you have to go visit a Dominican barbershop. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. Or the example we used, you gotta take like the train like uptown from like the upper west side in New York to like the Bronx or something,
Right.
and encounter all the people that in daily life you would try your best to avoid.
Normally.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or that you would antagonize in a situation where you have the upper hand.
Exactly.
Or, okay. So, all right. So then the example yesterday did work. You could have a Legends of the Hidden Temple style competition, but it would be in Chernobyl. Like, if you're an anti-nuclear activist, you have to do a Legends of the Hidden Temple in Chernobyl.
You mean like in a nuclear like reactor core or some shit like that?
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
You have to get out with like under a certain dosage of radioactivity in your body.
Also wearing a hazmat suit already to make it like physically like difficult. To like do these stunts and shit.
Okay, all right, yes. Okay, all right. So yes, so then
We're basically taking the battle from the marketplace of ideas to the marketplace of physical competition.
Exactly.
Right.
That's exactly what it is.
You're right. Okay. So yeah,
casual listeners will say, "Well, that sounds a bit fascist, Tom Sexton." That's why you have to meet them on their own turf and destroy them on their own turf. Only way to do it.
Mm-hmm. So like, you know how they had like triathlons, like swimming, biking, and running. Yeah, you're an anti-offshore drilling activist. You have to swim through the Gulf like while it's coated in oil. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. You have to, as an obstacle course, you have to dodge like pelicans like covered in oil and shit like that. Yeah.
This is much better. Okay, yeah, this is tight.
Okay, I'm gonna give y'all like an organization. You gotta tell me what their like sort of game show like competition they'd have to do is. I think the example. Okay, let's go back to this because the example I used yesterday before we got cut off was Surge. What would you say, Surge? Showing up for racial justice. What would they? What kind of gauntlet would they have to run?
Okay. So like the person who's most active in Surge is like a white person, right? Because like the whole idea of Surge is like if you're white, you use your whiteness to dismantle racism.
To show up for racial justice.
To show up for racial justice, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So then you could do like a cannonball run type thing where you have to show up. But if you don't show up, you have to admit that racism is good, I guess.
I'm thinking more like you have like the example I was using yesterday. You have like after work or like social settings, you know, maybe you have like a Cinco de Mayo like party or something like that, or maybe you have like an event where people should be culturally sensitive.
Okay, yeah.
And you have to try to convince your racist coworker who's wearing a sombrero or some shit like that, like who's a white dude, why like that's not cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're less about physical. Yeah.
You could take that. You could take it back to the legends of the Hidden Temple too, and like talk. You know, like when the Aztecs guys dressed like Aztecs would jump out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Instead of letting them push you into like a ball pit or something, you try to tell them why what they're doing is culturally insensitive.
Wait, as they're trying to push you into a ball pit. So
Right. So you're actually bringing the marketplace of ideas to the marketplace of physical competition, and we're going to see which one wins out.
Yeah, you're shuffling around on like this small like pillar or some shit like that with them while trying to convince them why. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about ACLU? That's like a social justice cause, right? Like,
That's a good one.
Like if you're an ACLU activist, what would be your gauntlet? What would be your physical gauntlet?
I got you. Like a moral conundrum that like, you know, pits you against like defending like the freedom of speech of Nazis versus like doing something that the ACLU probably should be doing. You know what I mean? Like something that puts them in a dialectical, I guess, conundrum, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, but what game show would fit that the best?
That's a good one.
Family Feud?
I was going to say Family Feud.
Yeah,
Family Feud might do it, yeah.
Yeah, Family Feud, yeah. That'd be the best one.
Over here we have the Mingala family to our left. They're pretty. We don't like what they have to say, but we respect their right to tell it. And then Steve Harvey comes out and knows. Steve Harvey, fresh from the trunk of a car in Eastern Kentucky, or the back seat of a car,
climbs out smooth as his suit out.
Yeah, just pulls the wrinkles out and then just. God damn it. Okay. Okay. I got one. I think here. Let's just get right into it. The Democratic Socialists of America.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Oh shit. That's a good one.
What do you think?
Well, let me. I'm trying to think about like physical competition game shows. All right, so there's like The Amazing Race. Double Dare. Remember, was Double Dare the game where you got slimed?
Yeah, Mark Summers was the host. Yeah,
and he hated slime.
Yeah, like on Nickelodeon back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you remember, there was a spin-off of that called Guts, and then eventually Global Guts.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Should we do Double Dare? Because I can't. You're right. There was a spinoff called Guts. I never watched it.
So on Double Dare, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to jog my memory, but they asked like questions, and if you couldn't answer the questions, you could say physical challenge, right? And then you would have to do something like run across like a rickety bridge with like a slime pit underneath or something.
Right, and they'd be dumping slime left and right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the DSA one would be...
The DSA one would be like you have to fix a brake light, or you have to like Okay, it's the Amazing Race, but unless you get your brake lights fixed, you're gonna get pulled over by the cops.
Yeah.
So you have to fix the brake
And like
lights.
missed work and like, child support payments and like actually like go to jail. Yeah. Like real world consequences. Okay.
All right.
Well, we'll stick that one back in the oven for a little bit and see what happens with it.
Oh shit.
Oh
Wow.
boy.
Oh, shit, man.
Well, in any case,
Yeah.
Nevertheless.
Well, so then they're not doing the activist show like they said they were. Is Usher still involved? That's all I want to know. Is Usher still involved with the new revamp?
I think all three. It was Julian. Is it Julian Hoff, or is it Ho? I don't know. Julian Hoff. Yeah. I forget the other. Who actually? Julian Hoff wore blackface apparently for Halloween one year, where she was. She was. I forget the actress's name from Orange Is the New Black, but the woman who plays Crazy Eyes, I think her name is. She this woman wore blackface and like her hair twisted up in knots like the character from the show a couple years ago. So yeah.
And
By the way, yeah.
well, then what's her activist like?
I
I
have
what
no
is-
idea.
What is Usher's activist bona fide? I mean, like,
Being black in America, I don't know, dude. I don't fucking know. Being like a popular figure in America, no idea.
It's like, did they just find like 3 celebrities who have like had like teachable moments based on their like public misdeeds that got exposed, and it's like that was their basis.
oh yeah,
Like
That
Julianne
would
Hough did
make sense.
blackface, so she gets on this because now she's learned, right?
right.
Yeah, exactly.
And
exactly.
Usher cheated on his wife or girlfriend or whatever, and made an album
cheated.
about it.
Yeah, but I feel like he did his public penance. He made a whole album off of it. Like,
Yeah, and got extremely rich. That thing sold 1 million copies in its first week. This man literally had his cake and ate it too.
man.
I will say that album is great. I mean, like not every song on it. It's got some filler for sure, but it's like I'd say like 70% of it is an excellent album.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's back when like you could listen to an album like all the way through and almost every song was a hit, you know.
Totally. Who is Priyanka Chopra? She's the third person on this show.
That is Nick Jonas's wife. She's an actress. She was on that show Quantico,
Yeah.
like where she's like a training to be an FBI agent or something.
Oh, so this is her penance. Okay.
Did she come
Yeah.
out of Bollywood type of stuff? Is that her like her acting?
I think she's American, but I think she's been on a bunch of shows. I can't really.
She's winner of
Was
the
it-
Miss World
wasn't
2000
she-
pageant.
Was she briefly married? Hold on a second. I think she might have been. I want to check this before I say this out loud because I'm wondering if no.
I think all of these people. I think Chopra, Usher, and Julian Hough. I think they're all involved in like celebrity type philanthropy, like celebrity type activism. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah.
they speak.
UNICEF.
Yes,
I'm looking
exactly.
it up now.
At
Yeah.
UNICEF, they speak out against like infanticide, stuff like that. Like
You
know,
mean?
just like low hanging fruit. Like nobody
Yeah,
likes
like the worst,
infanticide.
most generically worst, like crises you could think of, but that don't really require much of a like you're not taking much of a risk. Like no one is against like child like sex trafficking or anything like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
Like, environmentalism now. It's not dodgy. You know what I'm saying?
in the early 2000s, like Darfur was one of these.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Like George Clooney was big into, and I'm not saying that didn't deserve attention or anything, but it was like, it seemed like something everybody could agree on.
I'm pissed. I'm pissed that this show's not actually happening now. That they're just doing like a boring ass documentary. Like No, come on. Like,
Yeah, they should have stuck. They should have stuck to their guns, man, and just like had the original vision play out. That'd have been tight.
yeah, I mean, because like, I mean, if you're a leftist, like whatever you're doing isn't really threatened by this, anyways. Like, this is just, it's like gamified activism of like the, what was the Coney type stuff? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, it's it would have
If you
been some
think of-
good content.
Oh my God, it'd been so good. We could have did like we tune in every night and then report back on it. That'd have been
Yeah,
so
exactly.
good. They're cheating.
It would have been
here.
something to hate watch. It would have been something to hate watch. It would have been perfect.
It's funny because it's like the presumption is like certain causes are going to lose out and just get a door prize. You know what I mean?
They're literally
so
playing out.
absurd to me.
They're
It's
literally
like
playing out a
Celebrity
Pressure
Jeopardy
Olympics
or something. Yeah.
It's a Pressure Olympics, like like on TV. That's what it is, man.
No, so we weren't ready for that. Like I said yesterday, it's like the Back to the Future meme, Marty McFly. Like, your kids are gonna love it, you know.
Yeah.
There's a Wikipedia page for activism. It just says activism.
What does it have to say? What's the definition of activism?
Activism consists of efforts to promote, impede, direct, or intervene in social, political, economic, or environmental reform with the desire to make changes in society toward a perceived greater good. And some of the examples they offer, like civil rights activists, all right, that makes sense. Women's Liberation March in Washington, D.C., August 7, 1970, that makes sense. And then they have, like, Barricade at the Paris Commune, March 1871. It's like, okay.
Oh my God, they really do something.
The famous Occupy the Commune, man. As we all know, man.
Oh,
my
shit.
God, man.
Speaking of Occupy, did you guys see that tweet going around from, was it Occupy Democrats? That was like...
Retweet if you support landlords.
Yeah, it was basically like, yeah, RT, if you think, it says breaking, a large Florida landlord announces that he will begin requiring all new and existing tenants to provide proof of COVID vaccination, saying, you don't want to get vaccinated, you have to move, and if you don't, we will evict you. RT, if you support the landlords, move.
Bruh, didn't they have some shit? I don't know if it was the Occupy Democrats, but it was some wing of the Democratic Party, like social media wing, where this woman was under threat of losing her child because she wasn't vaccinated, and they were like retweeting this, like to show like the judge, I guess, who like handed down this ruling, like was doing the right thing, and it's like the same kind of like, yo, this is not a good thing, man. To be punishing people like this, you know.
Didn't we talk? We had an episode about this a few weeks ago about like judges, telling people you have to get vaccinated or you're going to jail. And in this case, the one that you're referencing, Aaron, I think that was in Georgia. The judge denied this woman custody of her child because she wasn't vaccinated or something like that. Yeah.
Oh man,
I don't know.
I don't know. Today like the 10th anniversary. I saw people posting that too. The 10th anniversary of Occupy. Speaking of which, I saw people posting about that.
Oh, today is? Holy shit! You're right.
Yeah. Well, like today, yeah, like this month of September this year, it's the 10th anniversary.
God damn, 10 fucking years.
10 years.
I remember
man.
riding down to the courthouse in Austin, which is where I was living at the time. I was biking down there, and I was on the phone with my friend Eric, and I was like, "This might really be it, man. This might be the revolution."
Oh man,
Yeah.
I should have known. I was in Little Rock, Arkansas, working at the Clinton Library. This is before I was swimming upstream from liberalism, and I should have known something was up when they were just like, "Yeah, come on in, hang out." Like all the Occupy people just welcomed them to the library, like gave them like cake and cookies and pops and shit. Like, oh, it's that easy, huh?
No,
And that's when I started believing in the power of public-private partnerships. For us. Listen, we're only going to change things when we bring the NGO world to the business world. And that's what I believe then, that's what I believe now.
Yeah.
I've been saying it.
Yeah. Oh, man. Go ahead, Terrence.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I was in New York at the time. I was going to community college. And I was taking this it wasn't political science. It was American government, but could tell my professor, probably had probably taught political science courses, and definitely was trying to kind of inspire the kids there, taking this remedial, I think, American government class. And like you said, Terrence, I really felt too at the time, I was like, oh shit, it's about to pop off, because even my professor, he made this, tried to make this kind of grand speech, on the last day of class, where he's basically what's going on just a couple blocks away, he's trying to say that's history, and that's the way it really felt, man, at the time, that it felt like this was something monumental, and then,
Well, it happened at the same time. Well, it happened maybe 6 or 7 months after the Arab Spring, so it had that kind of world historic feel to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Are we like a shockwave? Are we next?
Yeah.
Is it gonna happen here?
Which we should have known. After we saw the holographic image of the pale horse riding through the Tahrir Square. What was
in retrospect probably a harbinger of things to come.
Yeah.
But who could have known,
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, do you guys want to hit some softballs? How you feeling today? You want to hit some softballs?
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Are you talking about big swollen softballs?
We're talking about big swollen softballs today.
Yeah, I'll hit some
big swollen varicose softballs.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about the article going around in Bloomberg, the op-ed about company towns.
Even softer balls.
Even softer balls. Amazon's new factory towns will lift the working class. Plentiful new jobs at higher wages in places with cheaper housing sounds like a solution to inequality. I was out in New Mexico the past week, and I don't watch a whole lot of TV, but in the hotel, I had the TV on, and a commercial came on for Amazon. I don't know if you guys have seen this. Have you guys seen this commercial? It's
I've seen several from Amazon.
Yeah, it seems like it was made probably right before or right after the unionization attempt in Alabama. But it features a guy who is basically talking about how Amazon helped him go on to find a better paying job as a nurse. They paid for his tuition and all this, and have y'all seen this?
Yeah, I've seen I know exactly which one you're talking about. I don't know if it's the same one, but similar, where they talk about the education opportunities that Amazon has afforded to people, and the twist at the end is you can get a job outside of Amazon, beyond Amazon, or right back at Amazon, but I guess in a higher echelon or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Pretty dark.
This very dystopian, yeah.
Yeah, I think this kind of goes in that same vein. I think that they're trying to make the case that they are a public good rather than a public nuisance. And they're obviously they're taking over everything. But it kind of seems natural that they would want to also take over municipal governance and kind of, become a sort of sub-government to the U.S. government.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I promise you will see this in the coming years. If you live in a place, your municipal water supply will be at some point taken over by Amazon. Your electricity utility will be taken over by Amazon, because none of like the things that we deem sort of, and I grew up in a town where those were public things, at least, on the water side until fairly recently. And if you're wherever you're living, like none of these like companies, private companies that provide those services can like stand under the weight of like the sort of the onslaught of like Amazon's societal takeover in every sector.
Yeah.
It's like, you could already order your groceries on Amazon, you know what I mean? And all that kind of stuff. It's like, it's not that far of a leap to think that they can also infiltrate like every single thing we need for like day-to-day existence.
I've mentioned this on the show before, but even like, not even like immaterially speaking, like not even something material, like my town, which is like Stonecrest, they were going to change the name to Amazon in the hopes of capturing that bid when Amazon was shopping around for a new warehouse. And my town where I live was willing to change its name to Amazon in order to like, attract like that attention.
In fairness, Stonecrest is a trash name. It's like a generic, vaguely British sounding thing.
Exactly. Also known as Lithonia, which I guess is a more preferable name. But yeah. It definitely sounds like a manufacturer.
It's like so thirsty. It's like, come on.
Exactly.
Like, why would Amazon... Oh, it's so bad.
Well, that's funny you say
like,
that, Aaron, because like every town in Eastern Kentucky is named after a coal company. Like I didn't even know this till a few years ago, but like I think Vico, like the city of Vico, which kind of got famous, probably 7-8 years ago for having, the gay mayor Johnny Cummings that was on the Colbert Report and all that stuff. But I think Vico is an acronym that means, is it Viper something coal and coke organization, something like that.
Virginia Coke and Coal.
Virginia Coke and Coal. Yeah, okay.
And Seco is the same. Seco is the same.
Southeast Coal.
Seco. Yeah, it used to be a company town. But this op-ed is kind of interesting, and while I was like looking at it, it's the one that's going around on Bloomberg right now. But there was another one from a few years ago that also made the rounds, and it's called also on Bloomberg. Bloomberg really, really wants us to live in company towns. It says what Facebook can learn from company towns. As the technology firm plans to build a village in Silicon Valley, history suggests that what can sustain a company town long after its founders are gone. Like, and the whole point of this article, like, it found 2 company towns, like one made by Hershey and one made by like a Still, corporation, I think. And it was like it said one of the subheaders is how a company town can last, and it like went through all the things that Hershey did to make this company town like sustainable and like people want to live there and stuff. I don't know, it's pretty crazy.
This from the Bloomberg, well, the first one that we brought up, the most recent one, the Amazon company town one. There's just like this amazing in the beginning of it, like, where he's trying to present, like, he doesn't even call company towns. He keeps calling them factory towns.
Right. Yeah.
And it just reminds me of like, if you ever watched like Mad Men, when Don Draper is like pitching an idea to you, he's like, but what if you shifted that focus to a different kind of community? Let's call them factory towns. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's trying to sell you.
Factory town has the connotation of like this, like, town too tough to die,
right?
It's like proud of their work ethic and all that stuff. Company town, the connotation is exploitation,
authoritative.
Exactly.
Yes, it's like authoritarian and stuff. But factory town sounds like that mid-century, like robust middle class thing that everybody loves.
Because
so
we
much.
live and work together in a factory, like we cohabitate this space instead of being owned and exploited by Oh, okay.
In many ways, it's kind of like I was thinking about this the other day. Like, COVID obviously has changed a lot of things, to say the least. But, like, one of the more fundamental changes in political economy that it's initiated is, like, our merging with technology and the internet. Like, in the sense that now there is a sort of almost singularity. And it's crazy that they want us to move physically into their spaces, but they also want us to inhabit their spaces virtually, like the whole Facebook metaverse thing. Like, can you imagine a scenario where you wake up in the morning, you put on your Ocular VR set and go to your conference meeting? Everything in that meeting is rendered realistically. And so you have a meeting like you would in real life, but it's virtual reality. But they can monitor you even more closely and make sure that you're not like communicating with anybody else, or like that you're. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? It's that seamless integration with the internet that they want, but they also want our physical locations to be integrated into their sort of like vertical operations as well.
I think, Tom, you've mentioned this before. We talked about it, like the fact that like, what's most profitable now is not even like physical, like it's like all this like data, I guess, and this kind of metadata. And I saw a tweet, like this really dystopian tweet. Somebody said something like, imagine that you live in a smart home, right? That's uses that Internet of Things, where you have like devices on you that read your biometrics or something like that, and you try to call out of work, and these devices can tell whether or not
you're lying,
like, based on your exactly whether or not you're fucking lying or not. Try to just get a day off. You know what I mean?
Which listen, like calling in sick is a time-honored tradition. You know what I mean?
Also, stealing from work, time-honored tradition.
Right.
Yeah, like a little wage theft. The thing is they don't like it when it comes back to them, but they're happy to engage in all that wage theft and everything else.
Yeah.
Okay, let's read this real quick. This is written by a guy named Connor Sin.
Connor with one N.
Connor with one N. And
what kind of name is that?
His last name kind of sounds like Sin.
Like, this is Sin Dog from Cypress Hill. This is his real name. His nom de guerre. Their Sin Dog is his nom de guerre, but this is his government name.
This is government name.
He's also written such bangers as Amazon and Walmart are winning the labor market wars. Itching to reinvent your career? Now is the time.
This motherfucker lives in Atlanta too.
Also, Jesus how Christ. I could just kill a man and anyway, I'll stop. I'm showing my age here. This kid's like, what the fuck's Cypress Hill?
The campaign against economic inequality has put a bullseye on cities. Local governments are encouraged to raise minimum wages, change their zoning laws, and build more housing, particularly in affluent communities that are squeezing out the lower class. But what if you shifted that focus to a different kind of community? Consider these burgeoning new places strung along the interstate and other highways leading away from urban cores, populated by warehouses and fulfillment centers that are being built to serve the needs of e-commerce customers. Let's call them factory towns. These are places where working-class jobs are being created in large numbers and where wages already are rising. They're not much in the spotlight yet, but making these modern-day company towns more livable for the working class might be a better approach to solving inequality with a higher likelihood of success than continuing to fight against entrenched interests in coastal cities and high-cost parts of metro.
Hold up.
It's even worse than I thought. I did the requisite just like retweet this thing because it's like, I always know when one of these articles is going around because invariably we'll get tagged in a picture of me and Terrence standing out in front of the Seacoast store with Terrence has got
me
bleach
with
on
bird
his
shit
shirt.
on.
Yeah, not bird shit, contrary to popular belief, and me bloviating about company towns and stuff. That's pretty bad though.
Well, hold up though.
Like he's like, you know what? The real path forward here is to rob them of what little autonomy they have left.
Basically, what he's saying is like politics is impossible. You're never gonna win. So let's just give up, and let's turn over everything to the tech companies, because they'll look out for us because they have technology and resources.
But hold up, though. This motherfucker said they're not much talking about these factory towns. They're not much in the spotlight yet. I mean, there's a reason why, motherfucker. Like, given like 100 years of like labor history, why like company towns aren't very fucking popular. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it is pretty impressive how of all the things, it is pretty impressive how deeply Americans have internalized that idea that like company towns are bad. Most people hate the idea, like
yeah.
It's funny. I talk to people, like my mom grew up in a company town. A lot of people back home grew up in company towns, and it's funny because like people that are younger, like the younger end of boomers, like people in their 50s, maybe 60s, like tend to have like negative associations. But like older people, like in their 70s and 80s, were like, Lord, we had a movie theater and we had a grocery store and we had this and that. And it's like, I'm like, God, were your conditions that Spartan that you didn't even consider like all the like autonomy that you just, you've ceded based, not you've been exploited into it, but that you've had to give up for those things.
Right.
We had our own money that we could only use at stores in the company town. Like,
yeah, we had this money. It had the boss on it, not the president, but the boss of the company.
It used to be that when you were driving out of a metro area on a highway, you'd note the change in scenery as it went from urban to rural. Today, what's most noteworthy is the transition to humongous warehouses and distribution centers, both currently in use and many more being built. Retail and e-commerce Goliaths, Amazon.com and Walmart, have distribution facilities everywhere, and while they may have the biggest footprint, companies that make building materials have their fair share, as do other e-commerce players like pet supplies company Chewy Inc. Economic realities dictate where these facilities get built. The need for speedy deliveries makes it important to be close to large concentrations of customers, but because the facilities require so much land, hundreds of thousands of square feet or more, they tend to be on the outskirts of cities where land is abundant and cheap. Highway proximity is a must so that trucks can quickly get in and out. These warehouses also provide jobs to large numbers of people. An 800,000 square foot Amazon building employs between 1,000 and 1,500 full-time workers. So when you have multiple large warehouses operated by different companies packed along both sides of the highway in close proximity, you can be talking about a cluster employing many thousands of workers.
When you pack people like sardines, we're talking about like, my
That's
God.
essentially what we're getting at here, yes. Listen, if you've considered the model in more densely populated areas of China and Bangladesh, I think that could really work for West Virginia.
Now consider Amazon's announcement this week that it's making another big hiring push at its fulfillment centers with jobs paying an average starting wage of $18 an hour. Up 20% since 2018. So generous. $18 an hour. Wow.
Up 20% though since
or
2018.
what you can get by working at Arby's down the street here from me these days.
Thinking about the growth of fulfillment and distribution centers in general, maybe these highway warehouse communities with jobs that pay increasingly respectable wages are what the future of the working class looks like. And doesn't it make sense then to think about how we can make these communities better for the people who will live and work there? It starts with making the jobs as high-paying and safe as possible, whether that can be done by running labor markets hot or perhaps with unionization or the threat of it. If these sorts of jobs get to an average wage of $20 an hour, then a household with 1.5 full-time workers in it could make $60,000 a year with benefits. People can argue about what constitutes a reasonable working-class lifestyle, but that would seem to offer the prospect for a much better existence than service workers had a decade ago, particularly considering lower housing costs on the outskirts of metro areas.
Yeah, I'm sure peeing in bottles and shitting in fucking bags and shit like that because you can't like take a break on delivery, you know what I mean? Or like when you're in a warehouse, I'm sure that's a reasonable working class lifestyle.
Well, listen, all these illiterate reprobates want is to be able to go watch the latest Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson movie at the theater and eat at Applebee's on the weekend. What happens between Monday and Friday is strictly just in support of that. So.
Well, I like the implication that like $60,000 with benefits. Wow, I mean, Amazon has found a heart, and it's just, I mean, like, you know, it's almost so cliche at this point to even bring it up, but like, how much money did Bezos make during the pandemic? Wasn't it just an obscene amount? Like, all of these fucking people, like, you could
he's on
afford
pace to be
pay
the world's first trillionaire in like 10 years or something.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
You could pay these workers probably like $2,000 an hour, and it still would not even cut into Bezos's bottom line. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could pay them so much more. They could be making probably $500,000 a year, and it wouldn't even fucking make a blip in Bezos's wealth.
Yeah, he could turn like literally swaths and swaths of the world into millionaires, and it wouldn't even come close to touching his nut.
No, I mean, there was this thing going around, and I haven't had time to like verify it or whatever, but it was like a small business in Ohio that, like, for a day, it was like a gimmick thing. It was like, for a day, the workers ran the shop, and everybody got paid the same. And, like, their hourly rate was, like, $75 an hour. You know what I mean? And, like, this was a small business in Ohio. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Just magnify that by, like, whatever Bezos' wealth is and however much profits Amazon takes in. And every worker could reasonably be making, like, $500,000 a year at Amazon. I'm confident saying that.
I'm just trying to, like, just conceptualize, like, not only, like, what having that much money is like, but like how literally you are able to change the world, like, you know, at your command, at will. You know what I mean? Like the way you want it to be, and how terrifying that is. You know. Mm-hmm. And like, but like what this guy is suggesting, and what's even worse is that he had like it was like a thread, Twitter thread that he had started this with, posted it with. Somebody had asked him, like, you know, what do you think? He's like, oh, well, this, you know, I just wrote this because it's going to have implications, you know, for leftists, and they need to start thinking about this, you know. So, like, you know, already in this person's mind, like the autonomy of like the people that work at Amazon, right? It's like something that's not even considered, you know.
Right.
You know, right. Amazon is the one that gets to shape the reality for these people, and they're the ones that they should be grateful because they're getting homes and jobs.
Yes.
You know?
Exactly. It's a weird thing. Terrence, have you ever driven through Huntington and saw the big fulfillment center over there? Just how weird it looks in like the landscape of it all.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just something unsettling about that. I guess it's just, you know, we're pre-biased with like all the stories about pissing in bottles and everything like that. But there is just something like naturally like creepy about putting these like big, huge, futuristic facilities like right in the middle of like some of the most impoverished places in the country.
Yeah.
Well, they've completely taken all. What they're trying to do ultimately is not only take over, you know, not only be the source for all online goods, groceries, and other things, but also take over all local logistic lines. I mean, like, they're trying to take over everything.
Didn't Amazon, like, I think that warehouse in Bessemer, Alabama, weren't they able to, like, through the city, like, facilitate, like, controlling the traffic lights, like, of that intersection?
Wow.
So that the workers that were picketing and trying to pass out, like, you know, flyers and stuff like that to people just driving past, the traffic lights were tuned in such a way that the city basically relinquished the power of the traffic lights to Amazon, so that people were not able to stop as long as they would have otherwise. Right. And the workers also too were like under threat of possibly getting hit by fucking cars, you know.
Well, it's on one hand it's really dark that like this is what they're going for, but on the other hand it's kind of like, you know, kind of fits right into like the whole Marxist analysis of this. It's like it kind of seems like they're creating the conditions of their own, the contradictory conditions of their own undoing. Like if they take over everything, if they eventually become, you know, infused into every aspect of our lives, it almost seems that like that presents even greater opportunities for us to take over them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, but maybe not. Maybe that is the genius of the whole tech thing. I don't know.
Well, one thing that you have to address right from the jump, some of this shit is just like going to have to be addressed. Like at a certain point, like all those like robots that do backflips and shit that they're making.
Yeah.
Like we got to nip that shit in the bud, because some of this shit, like AI, once the horse is out of the barn, there ain't shit you can do about it. You know what I mean? Like we should have been addressing that already. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, sure, okay, we'll work these shitty jobs because that's sort of a reality at this moment. But like those robots and those backflips and shit, I'm gonna break those in half when you're not looking. Like we got to do shit like that. That's just got to happen. Those goddamn robo dogs and shit.
Yeah, that's not theoretical. That's like that's happening.
You know, there's the iconic picture from the civil rights era of like, you know, the pigs like unleashing the dogs on people and stuff like that. It's not hard to see something like that happen in the future, but those dogs are those weird robot things, and it's Bezos is the one that's pulling the strings instead of fucking Bull Connor or whoever, you know.
Yeah, I will say I have much less compunction about beating the fuck out of a robot dog with a bat than I do an actual dog. So, you know.
Yeah, it's like I would even let that good sweet boy, even though his mind's been perverted by the cops, I would just.
Listen, man, you ain't even got to beat those robot dogs. Apparently, there's like a manufacturing flaw where you could just pop the battery out from underneath or something like that. So yeah, so like people have already found that out. So yeah, you know.
Well, okay. This is a pretty short thing. There's only like 2 paragraphs left, but people can live. Oh shit! It's trying to make me pay. Oh no! It's trying to make me pay for a subscription. Hold on.
See, that's exactly why,
dude. I wish you could pop the battery out of this motherfucker. All right.
Yeah, let me give $5 so I could continue to read Connor's Sin.
People can live close to work with shorter commutes, plus the possibility of employer-provided shuttle buses when their jobs are in a cheaper, less crowded part of a metro area. If there's a push to increase density by building affordable apartments or townhouses for workers, there's less likely to be wealthy homeowners mobilizing to stop it, since those sorts of homeowners probably will live closer to the city core. As wages rise and more jobs are created at warehouses and distribution hubs, you'll get a secondary increase in economic activity as amenities like retail and dining are built close by to appeal to the workforce. These new factory towns will presumably have new issues that need addressing, such as adequate amounts of housing, schools, and healthcare facilities. But the point is that we need to be thinking about what sorts of communities are being created by the growth of U.S. e-commerce infrastructure and what they'll need to thrive. To urbanists contemplating the potential of the area surrounding Interstate 75 in Ocala, Florida, outside of Orlando, might not be as sexy as upzoning and building transit in San Francisco, but it's these types of new communities that are going to be the future of a large segment of the working class. Did I read the right article? I guess I did. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, anyways, that's Connor Sin.
I mean, also like this idea that like the whatever land that Amazon, these warehouses are going to be building on, is just going to be like land that's already like, you know, like barren, you know, it's already like unowned by anybody. It's not like anyone lives there or has been living there for generations who's going to get kicked out. Nah, it's just like land that we just bought from the municipality, you know, that was just there. You don't have to kick people out of their fucking homes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's going to be so ugly, too, and they're going to put it up as cheap as they possibly can. Like, they already sell, like, tiny houses on Amazon and shit that are just basically made with popsicle sticks and fucking particle board. It's like you go to Hayman, Kentucky, and go look at the company houses up there and see if they're, like, you know, built to stand the test of time. You know, they are not, decidedly.
Connor Sin is the co-founder, or is the founder of an investment firm called Peachtree Creek Investments. He lives in Atlanta. Go fuck.
I know. I know.
Aaron, it is incumbent on you to go find Connor Sin and put hands on him.
about to pull the fuck up, man. Shit.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to me like, yeah, what he's saying is, you've got these corridors on on the outsides of like metro areas, like you were saying, Aaron, that like they're just being like taken over by these large e-commerce like warehouse logistics centers and everything like that, and that this will be good for the working class because it will attract greater infrastructural investment to those areas as well, I guess, right? Like, is that kind of what he's saying? I don't really know what he's getting at here, to be honest.
If he's getting at that, there is absolutely no historical precedence for that, because that's the opposite of what's happening.
Exactly.
Like seriously, you go to any coal fucking camp that's ever been existed in this country, and like people straight pipe into the creeks, not because like they're just gross and uncivilized, but because these companies that established these communities built no infrastructure, put no money into it. Like, they're going to try to do this. It's a max extract situation.
I mean, dude, you don't build, like, you know, here in Atlanta, right? I mean, in any, like, you know, city, like the term food deserts, right? Like, sure, there are a lot of people who work in this community, or yeah, people travel outside of the community, but just because people live there doesn't mean there's any development in the community. There's not even a fucking supermarket, you know what I mean?
Or, consider this. They don't even need to use any of the on-the-ground infrastructure at a certain point, because aren't they trying to build like a fleet of drone delivery, delivery drones? Those don't need roads. You just fucking fly those to the house, deliver it, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they have ways around this sort of like nexus of.
So wait, Terrence, you say that the same drone that you just like, you know, like furnished and packaged with some shit at the factory is gonna like travel like 2 miles to your house in the factory town that you live in on the same fucking day? Like,
I guess so.
Jesus, man.
Yeah, they have no incentive to invest in any of those things. I mean, they don't even really have an incentive at this point to invest in an actual company town. It feels like a lot of like hot air, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, it would cost them a lot of money to do it. I mean, the reason they built company towns back in the old days, because it felt like workers were maybe, well, shit, I don't know. I mean, I guess they did it for geographical demands, but also because workers were pretty mobile, and there was a lot of immigrants coming into the country, and they needed to confine them in one place. But
we needed to contain the growing Lithuanian threat.
Exactly. Isolate them to one region. Yeah.
It had to be done up front, otherwise they proliferate.
Yeah, it seems like it was a mechanism of control, the requisites for which may not exist anymore, but maybe they do. I don't know. It just seems to me like they're not going to sink all those costs into building an actual, housing subdivision for workers. Unless, as you said earlier, Tom, it's just like cheap IKEA shit. It's just like popsicle stick houses, which I could see
it'd be like an Olympic village. They'll be sleeping on like cardboard no fuck boxes and shit like that. I think this is one of those things like bluster about automation, that it's like Connor Sin probably knows that people, sort of getting an uproar about the insistence of like company towns and so forth, and he's probably doing this shit for clicks, because that's the whole sort of like news economy at this point. And I mean, because I don't think you could go into this, or he just thought he had the take of the century that nobody thought of yet,
right?
Even though
I mean, like,
been around for a while.
Could be. It's clickbait too. Yeah, you're right.
But Tom, you just hinted at something. It seems like this is just like if you're a journalist, like you're an op-ed dude, like the profitable thing to do is to write an op-ed about basically how everyone needs to remain slaves, pretty much. You know what I mean? Like convincing people like to go back to work, like, post-pandemic, convincing people that company towns are a good idea. And I don't know. I think Terrence, you were saying, like, is it profitable for them to even like make these company towns? And maybe in the past that had something to do with what was being produced, like if you're mining like coal, that's something that's in a specific region, a location, But now these factories, these warehouses that are just popping up, like they're not making anything. They're just shipping things out. Like,
Right.
why wouldn't Amazon just like, invest money in a public-private partnership, the same way that corporations that are located in Atlanta are doing with the Beltline, like Coca-Cola, for example, right? They're throwing tons of money at this Atlanta Beltline. I've told you guys about that ring that's being built around the city. Part of that is supposed to go to affordable housing, supposed to. So I mean, if Amazon really wanted to, they could just like throw money at like, these cookie cutter like houses that, like you were saying, Tom, that it's just basically a fucking popsicle that collapses in like, like a week or something.
Yeah, I think that's a good point you make, Aaron, about not making anything here. It's like basically our economy is just a convenience economy. It's like, how can I get from one place to the other like at the fastest possible clip? That's why, like, if you look at like logistics sectors, like all those, that kind of shit is just doing nuts. You know what I mean? Others, like Uber and others, are just like weirdly operating at a loss, and yet their valuations are like still sky high. I'm not sure how that works, but like, yeah, there's nothing physical material that we're making. These things are made in other places, and we just figure out the most, expedient way to get them into people's hands, and that's basically what we do here.
Yeah. Was it like 70% of the economy is service?
Oh man.
Yeah.
I don't know. For them to actually want to make company towns, they would have to see their workers as like something that they would want to invest in. But at this point, everybody's pressed so hard, and because the economy is 70% service, like they see workers as expendable. So and therefore easily replaceable. So I don't see a scenario in which they would actually expend those kinds of quote-unquote investments to retain workers, because they know they can just like treat them like shit, discard them, and I don't know, it's even darker than company towns in a way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, man. As you were talking, go ahead, Tom. What are you gonna say?
Oh no! I was just gonna say it's like, even if let's say there were no moral quandaries with this and it could work, I mean, you would still be relying on the better angels of Jeff Bezos' nature, who is by all indications a guy that just thinks the system works, right? And thinks that like, as long as he's continuing to accumulate wealth, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you know what I mean? Like these rigid tech guys like Steve Jobs were like sociopaths, but I think they rationalized it as, well, these people around me are inferior to me because they can't figure out how to like make this thing that's in my head in like 2 minutes and present it to me.
Right.
And I don't know. I just think that like Terrence is right. I just think that it's like they really don't have like any compunction to really like treat people better. Like even for something like this to happen would rely on Jeff Bezos like thinking, okay, maybe I want to treat people better. But this is a guy that hasn't given any indication of that. This is a guy that just thinks that like, well, if somebody quits or somebody can't hack it, then there's like 5,000 more people ready to take those jobs. So it just falls apart under scrutiny, even if we're stepping away from like the arguments of like, people's autonomy and so forth.
Yeah.
But even like, as Terrence, we were talking, I was thinking like, I'm sure people have written about this like better than I can like kind of talk about now. But like I wonder how Marx would describe like the Silicon Valley like tech industry. Like these aren't like, I guess these like these factory tyrants of oil barons of old. These are again like immaterial products where like their influences stretch into like every part of human life, where like you can point to Jeff Bezos as like an enemy, but like, instead of like striking, at a coal mine or something like that, or a factory, where do you go to like take down Amazon, right? Do you just attack their houses? Do you blow up servers that are buried like hundreds of feet below ground? Like there's this weird immaterial but very material aspect now that like the tech industry has, that it's kind of like, given the fact that 70% of like the economy is also like the service industry, it makes it hard to know like where to attack those nodes, right? Where to attack those weak points at.
it seems to me Marx would probably think that these tech guys probably split the difference between like Andrew Carnegie and like some weird occultists in Europe or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's probably what he would think. You know.
Right. Well, because not only do they have like this sort of economic imperatives, but there is also this sort of like cultural thing to them as well. You know what I'm saying? It's the reason why Elon Musk has so many stands and stuff. It's even though, I mean, there was that video of Tesla that was going around this week of that Tesla like swerving in the pedestrians. I mean, like
the self-driving car.
Yeah, did you see that?
I heard about it. I heard about it. I didn't see it though.
Yeah, it was a video of it was like a dash cam of a Tesla, and it's like it's the same. You know how there was that video of the SpaceX rockets like fucking exploding, and then like Elon Musk and one of his nerdy servants or whatever were like, it's a learning experience. Well, in this Tesla video, the same exact thing happens. Like this Tesla was driving on a busy street, and it like swerved into pedestrians, and the guy behind the wheel managed to catch it on time, but he was like, dang, well, it's not perfect, but we still got some work to do, but it's not perfect, but it's a pretty good demonstration. And it's just like, how many fucking people have to die?
Just sacrifice a couple of grandmothers and like babies and carriages and shit like that.
In the name of progress, that's fine in these people's minds as long as it's not them, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's because like it's like I think we see these people as like, you know, Elon Musk Elon Musk specifically, right? I don't know about Bezos, but Musk and all his stands is like these are the people that like the tech geniuses who are going to like help us get out of this thing that we all know we're in, you know?
Right.
You know what I mean? They're going to help us like get out of this like horrible like dead end situation as a civilization that we're in with their technology. You know what I mean? So,
well, this op-ed itself basically says that like politics are a dead end. It's impossible. So all we got to do now is just hope that like, you know, hope for the, you know, benevolence of and like the intelligence and smarts and technology and everything of like the tech industry. And it's just like yeah I don't know.
That's why like you know, Howard Schultz was the CEO of Starbucks. I forgot what podcast I was listening to, but it's kind of like talking about him, and it might have been Democracy Now! Actually talking about the unionization efforts at a Starbucks in upstate New York. And Schultz, how the way that he talked workers down from forming unions was basically saying that he has their best interest in mind, you know?
Yeah.
And they don't even call their workers, they call them partners.
Well,
you know what I mean? Yeah. Like say we were talking about instead of using company town, using factory town, you know, just like that slight language change. And like, yeah, man. Why would any of the workers at the Tesla factory who are doing this great service for the rest of humanity about building like these electric cars, like why would they want to unionize, you know? Because of course Elon Musk with his futuristic mind and humanistic thinking has their best interests at heart, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
Well, speaking of unionization efforts, y'all been paying attention to anything about the Heaven Hill workers in Bardstown, Kentucky, going on strike?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, when I heard that, I was excited until I figured out that Fighting Cock bourbon is bottled by Heaven Hill, and so the Cocksman community, which I consider myself part of, not happy about that. But you know, you still don't cross a picket line. So,
why did you get the fellow Cocksman to like go on strike, man?
Yeah, man. What the fuck?
Yeah, dude.
Well, we have our own agenda, Aaron. In any case, it's funny because it's like you talk about like one of the few material things that we make in this country still, booze, you know, and everybody's got their own morality with all that kind of stuff, but it is a material thing that we make. And I think at one point, I mean, this was true 10, 15 years ago. I don't know if it's true now. But bourbon was the third most expensive liquid on the planet behind crude oil and printer ink.
God damn.
And it's it's funny to think about, like, like the bourbon industry's just boomed out of control, like crazy. Like you can't, like even like down shelf brands are like getting like bought and resold on the aftermarket for like many times like what they are. Like shit you could just go into Rite Aid and buy for $15 a fifth.
Like top of the
Like,
bottom shelf type of shit.
yeah, like 2 years ago is now like $60 resale, and you can't find it anywhere, unless it's like just like regular white label Jim Beam or something like that.
Damn.
But yeah, but it's like funny that like that industry's taken off like that, and Heaven Hill's been a huge beneficiary of it. And you got all these guys that are making it, and bottling it and everything else out here, trying to get a dime. And I don't know. I felt like, shout out to the Heaven Hill workers. We need to.
Yeah, critical support.
Yeah.
What else does Heaven Hill make?
Oh man, I think they make. I saw a big list of their brands the other day. I can't remember. I mean, when I was in college, I drank, a War Pension and Green Label, and now even that's like getting resold for crazy amounts. So, I think they might make Elijah Craig and
I see, yeah,
some other brands. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head.
Yeah. Well, yeah, critical support for the for the distillers.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, guys. Let's wrap a bow on this one. Sorry for the change in audio quality and the many technical difficulty. Just all the things we had to do to get this one episode out over the last 2 days of technical difficulties, internet issues. Good fucking Lord.
There's some love of podcasting, man. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Yeah.
Seriously.
When you least expect it.
Seriously.
Thanks for being patient with us. I probably should have tweeted out this was going to be late yesterday. I forgot to. But.
Yeah, well, apologies. Some things are just beyond your control, though. And now that we rely on these modes of communication for everything, and we ourselves have no autonomy or control over it, it's not a good formula.
Yeah, damn, yo, that's the way that all kind of like that's a little bit too on the nose, man. Damn, man. Plug out of the matrix.
Right. All right. Well, thanks for listening this week, everybody. We'll see you on the Patreon in a few days, and if not there, we'll see you back here next week. Until then, be safe. Take care of each other. We'll see you then.
Bye. God, man.